Hello, welcome to the ThatITShow. It's Yasmin again. Today I'm going to be continuing my epic saga about creating your own home lab and working on how to configure different types of open source and other solutions to be able to test all your different technical ideas and different software solutions that are available on the market. Now, let's roll the intro and see what I have in mind today. Welcome. What you see on the screen is actually my main topic today, and this is UNRAID. UNRAID is something that may or may not be familiar to you, depending on how deep you went into the home lab market. But let's say that UNRAID is trying to, or UNRAID is trying to basically become what was a lapsus on my side. It is trying to become a OneRAID. So it is basically trying to become a single solution to create your own home lab, not necessarily only for technically inclined people who want to experiment, but also for all the other people who want to have some sort of refurbished machine at home that is going to be both the storage, the virtual machine host, the central hub for the multimedia and everything else. So while, for example, Proxmox is more or less about trying to create a stable cluster of machines and then everything else is up to you, or TrueNAS being NAS, so a storage solution that is intended to first and foremost be a storage solution that is going to run with whatever you have in your servers. UNRAID is trying to be everything all at once. So it's trying to be both the storage solution, the virtual machine solution, the Docker or container solution, whatever the container may be. And also it is trying to be all of those things while at the same time being actually user-friendly. Now, I started almost every other episode that I was working on with my Proxmox virtual environment that I have configured on my machine, and then I installed everything as a virtual machine under it. UNRAID is a little bit different because the UNRAID, the intention of the developers wasn't to have an ISO that you are going to be installing yourself and to have to then use the third-party tool to use something. But instead, what they wanted to do is they wanted to create as seamless as installation as possible. So they have a huge bolded user guide how to install the UNRAID, and I'm going to go step by step through it because it is not exactly different than all the other steps, but what you're going to actually doing, you're going to be installing it on the bare metal or directly to the server, so it's going to handle all the other steps for you. Now, once you install or you download the creator for either Windows or Mac, you're going to be greeted with a screen like this, and this is going to ask you what do you want and how you're going to be installing your UNRAID. So we agree basically with this. Now I can choose OS, I can choose from different versions of UNRAID, and this means that it's going to get downloaded directly from their server. I'm going to choose the latest one, so the version 7.0.0. This version 7 was released early this year, and it is the latest version that is concurrent to the 6.12.15, which is the bug release version from the last year. So this one is the latest one, and I'm usually, when people are using UNRAID, I'm recommending them to use the latest one if possible. Now, storage, just ask me, which disk do I want to use. My USB drive is right now misbehaving, so let me just check if I can dismount it and then mount it again and see if this is going to help. No. Let me just plug it into another hub to see if this is going to help. Okay, maybe not. So we have come to our first problem, and this is that we have a missing GUID, or we need to reformat this drive. Let me just check here. Okay, so the solution was simple. I just found another device. Let's use this one as a generic flash disk USB device. Let's go with next. I'm going to call it UNRAID test. Say DHCP, yes. I want to overwrite all the data and erase the data and preparing to write. Now, while the system itself is preparing to write, and basically what it is doing is it is downloading the latest version of the UNRAID and installing whatever it needs to install to the disk itself. I'm going to quickly go through what UNRAID actually is. Now, when it comes to what UNRAID was intended to be, or what UNRAID is, it is more or less the same thing as all the other things that we were already playing with. So the TrueNAS, the Proxmox and everything else, but all in one. I already mentioned this. The idea is to have a simple interface that is going to be as simple as possible for the users who don't have any experience with software RAIDs and RAIDs in general, to be able to control. It is able to act as an application server. It is able to act as a host for virtual machines, so you can actually install virtual machines on it and create virtual environments. You can also do things that you wouldn't normally do. So, for example, you could install an operating system to it and then pass through a PCI graphic card. So you can actually use the machine at the same time with one operating system and have RAID or UNRAID installed underneath this operating system. So, for example, you could convert a simple machine into an Office server while at the same time being using this machine as a desktop workstation. Now, the thing is that what is different when it comes to all the other things that we have talked about, UNRAID is not free. There is a free trial, but after that you need to pay a small amount of money, and we're going to be talking about this a little bit later. But the thing is that you can try it for 30 days to see if this is something that you actually want to use. And basically the idea of UNRAID is to cover this kind of market where people need something to either power a small office or their own home network. It is capable of doing a lot of things in one small package, so it is using what is basically any server that you can come up with. And the most important difference is that it runs from the USB. So the installation itself is not going to go and end up on a system disk. It is going to end up on the USB, and the USB itself is the key. So once you pay for the operating system, or for the license to use the operating system, your USB key becomes the key for the system itself. So you can run it, or you can run the system from this key. This key contains all the configuration parameters for your computer, so you can even move it from one device to another. So the the actual USB key that your Android system is installed on is the primary thing that you need to pay attention to. Of course, this means that you are going to have some problems with USB keys, but from experience, and I have been running Android for the last 3, 4, even maybe 5 years now, I haven't had a big problem. Okay, a USB device broke, which was expected. There is a simple solution to just reinstall it. The keys are available once you pay for them on the site. So the only thing that you need to pay attention to is to have a backup copy of a key. And this is as simple as just copying the configuration directory on the USB key itself. Now, the second thing that is going to be different in today's video is that what I need to do and what I have to do in order to install all of this is that I cannot just simply go and install the UNRAID directly from ISO file and then do the installation that way. What I actually have to do is I have to map a USB drive, and I have to map this drive directly from the hardware of the machine to the virtual machine that is going to run the UNRAID, and then hopefully I'm going to be able to install the UNRAID while still maintaining the installation files on the USB file system. So it is going to take a small cut when once this thing is finished writing, for me to get the USB drive from my machine, at which I'm currently at, and this is used as a recorder, to the Proxmox host that is used as the host for the my Homelab and for everything that I'm showing to you. Now, this has its drawbacks. And this is going to be a reoccurring nightmare for everybody who is using any sort of proprietary software in the environment that requires virtualization. Because if you have a single USB and you want to be able to run something on a cluster, so if you run an application that is going to be run on the different computers across different networks, you are going to be pretty tied up with using this USB on a particular host. You can theoretically create there are programs that enable you to export the USB drive and then use this USB drive and put it on any of the hosts on the network. But still, your USB drive needs to be connected to something. So if your primary machine that contains your USB drive that contains your key fails for some reason or the other, your VM is going to fail. This is not a problem only with UNRAID. UNRAID, to be completely honest, is not supposed to be even used like this, because what we are doing today is completely not the normal usage case. I'm doing it simply because it's easier to understand what I'm doing while I have the virtual machine and in the window of a virtual machine. Since I can show you everything in full detail and everything else, it's much easier to do it that way. But if you're using something like, I don't know, an application that requires a USB kit for authorization like Sentinel Pro or something like iLock or whatever, then having a virtualized environment is going to become a problem, since you need to have a way of connecting your physical drive to different virtual machines. But this is becoming something that is probably going to become a next episode, because I just want to address all the different downsides of the virtualizations. There's not a lot of those, but there are some downsides. Now, let's say that this is finished. Press continue here, and let's just close this thing down and just do a quick cut. Okay, I have my machine set up and I have done the connecting of the USB key, so the key is connected to my Proxmox server. And now what I should be able to do is I should be able to create a new virtual machine. Let's do another one of those. Let's call it UNRAID test. Let's say that this is going to be for the OS. I'm going to be using, I'm not going to use any media because this is specific for what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to go with graphic cards, it's going to be default. Next, I'm going to create another set of 3 disks because I want to do the same thing that I did with the TrueNAS and everything else in the previous episode. I'm going to go with 8 cores. I'm going to then say 16 gigs of RAM. And I'm going to say network is going to be the regular network that connects to the internet. Next. And I'm not going to start the machine because I need to do some other things. Now let me do the finish. And let me see my machine being set up. Now hopefully, once I get my machine set up, I can add a USB device. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a USB port and I'm going to find my generic storage that is connected to my machine. So this is the device that I connected physically to my Proxmox device. This is something that is rarely used, but can be done. So now my machine is behaving as if the USB drive is directly connected to it. Now, once I do this, and you'll notice that it says host 4.2. This means the USB drive at port 2 of the controller 4. But anyways, this is the USB device that is connected directly to my machine. The next thing that I have to do now, since I didn't say where to boot from, I need to go to options and I need to tell to my boot options that I want to be able to boot from the USB. So I need to get my USB first in the boot order, and I want to put it up there, and I want to say that it is enabled. Also, I'm disabling CD-ROM because I don't need the CD-ROM now. Now, also I don't need the network card, but this is beside the point, so I'm not going to play with it. Okay. Next, what I want to make sure it is enabled is KVM hardware virtualization. So I want to be able to enable virtualization inside this machine, so that I'm actually able to run virtual machines inside virtual machines, because this is something that UNRAID is designed to do, and this should be it. Let me see if this is going to work. So USB is the first boot device. I have the console here, and let me start my machine. Now this should be starting my UNRAID installation, and I'm going to go with UNRAID OS. So now I'm booting from the USB drive that is connected physically to my Proxmox host. And this is another way that can be used if you need, for specific cases like this, if you need to be able to connect directly to the USB drives. So your Proxmox host shouldn't only be used for the virtual machines, it can also be used for the USB drives that you have connected somewhere. Now, it is actually booted up. It says UNRAID test login. It says this is the IP address, so 0.164, and it is it says that I can log in now. The next thing to do is to just directly go to the web interface, because this is the way this thing is configured, and go to the address that it gave me. So 168.1.164. I'm greeted with this thing here. It says, please set the password for the root user account. So the account itself has already been chosen for you. I can use whatever account I want to use. I'm going to go with the generic one. So what I'm going to use is just the password, basically. I'm going to set the password. I'm going to save it. And now I can go and start the trial. I can purchase the key. I can redeem activation code or recover the key. I'm going to start the trial because I don't have the key for this particular installation. Okay. Then I need to go and sign in with UNRAID Net, and I'm going to do this, hopefully. Let me see if I have a connection data for this. Just a second. Okay, this was unfortunately required because I wanted to avoid my personal data being all over the place. And now I'm going to confirm trial to start. Now, what does this thing do? I already have an UNRAID account, and I have another machine that is running in my virtual lab, or in my lab actually, at home. And I want to create another one because this is going to be a trial. So I'm just going to install the license to my stick. And this basically means that it is going to sign and deliver a license to my USB. And once either I buy another, or I buy a license, or if 30 days are up, I can try to request another 30 days extended license, or I need to stop using the UNRAID. Because as I said, the UNRAID itself is not free. Now, let's just do the installation of the disk. Now trial key has been installed, and my trial is being actually delivered. So there is an error, of course. Okay, so now my key is actually delivered. So it says that it is going to expire in 30 days, 4 minutes. And it is a trial. You can purchase it here, but I'm not interested in this. What I'm interested in are the drives, and the first and initial thing that I need to set up when it comes to UNRAID. Now, let's talk about how UNRAID functions. There are two main things that you need to know. First, the dashboard. The dashboard is going to give you an idea on what is happening on your machine, and it is going to give you an idea on what is happening inside the system, how the system itself is behaving, how much memory do you have free, your devices, and so on, your network device, your disks, and everything else. Now, before you can start doing anything, what you need to do is you need to prepare your hard drive array. Now, why is this important? Because everything in UNRAID is centered around you creating your disks. Even the license that you're paying for is dependent on how many devices you have in your machine. By devices, I mean hard drives. So when you're dealing with licenses, you can buy a different license depending on how many drives do you intend to run in your machine. Everything else is going to follow this. Now, as with all the other systems that I installed when I was testing it, I created 4 different devices. Those 4 different devices were just simply disks, and in all the other usage cases or on the other examples, my devices were used such that the first one was the actual system disk, and the next 3 devices I put into a RAID or a Ceph or whatever. Since UNRAID itself is running from the USB, and it's going to run from USB every time you boot it, your devices that you put inside your machine can be completely used for the storage. So you don't have to dedicate a separate system disk to create the system itself. Now, in order to create my device, I can go to the main, and now we come to the interesting thing. And this interesting thing is that I can use different devices in different ways. First, what I can do is I can identify my disks here, and I can see which disks are assigned and which are not assigned to which pool devices, and I can see what are the devices in which array. If I press on each of the disks, I can see what the disk configuration is. I can see different smart attributes. I can see the capabilities and everything else. So I can pretty much control the disks from here. When it comes to different things that I can do here is I can theoretically from here say that I want to create an array of device. I'm going to create a non-parity device, or I can create a parity device. Let's say that I'm going to be creating a parity device with 4 slots. Now, this means that what I just said to the UNRAID is that I'm going to be using my disks in such a way that I'm going to assign one drive as a parity drive, and then I'm going to be using the rest of the devices as the devices in the, I'm going to unassign this thing, and I'm going to go with 5 slots, and then I'm going to assign the rest of the disks here. So what I did is that I assigned a parity device, so the device that is going to hold the redundant data if something breaks, and I assigned 3 other devices for the data itself. Now what UNRAID is going to create is it's going to create array of devices that are going to be then formatted in order to enable the parity and to enable those 3 disks to behave as if I had what is essentially RAID 5. So I'm using 3 devices for the data, and one is the parity device that enables me to recover my data if any of the disks fail. So this is going to be this thing. Now it says that the array operation is stopped, configuration is valid. So if I need to change anything, the array has to be stopped. It is stopped, and if I press start now, and if I proceed, it should take a couple of seconds, and it should initialize my array. So I have a parity device, I have my 3 devices that are here, and what you can see here is that right now it is establishing the parity device. So what it is doing is basically it is calculating my parity for all the disks, so that the device itself is ready to accept the data. What this means in essence is that what I'm right now creating is a sort of a software created RAID 5. It took a couple of seconds because the disks themselves are quick and small. So now I have a 4 drive array device that has in itself makes available 3 of the devices. And what I can do now is I can say, okay, I have my machines here. Now what I can do and what I need to do is I need to format unmountable disks. Now this is the thing that I have to do here, is that I need to tell the UNRAID that my disks are free. This is simply to make sure that I know what I'm doing. If I don't format my disks, they're going to remain without any data written to it. So basically what the disks are going to be is that they're going to have whatever was on them before I formatted them. Once I format them, they're going to come into the array, and then this array is going to be a usable array for me to store data on. This is a little bit strange if you are used to any other way of installing storage systems. And the reason why this is strange is because usually what you do is once you initialize an array, your array is initialized. So that's it. When I created my array devices here, my parity device got initialized, but everything else, since this is a block array, it didn't read or it didn't write anything to the other device. It just wrote to the parity device, and now it is waiting for me to install or to format the rest of the disk. So let's do this. Let's just format this thing. It's going to take a couple of seconds. So I'm formatting all the disks at the same time. By default, it's formatting using XFS, and then everything should be coming online. and I should be seeing in total 101 gigabyte of storage space, because this is 3 times 32, and I have a parity disk that is this green right now. So now I actually have my device online. I have my boot device here. I have my array started, and it says parity is valid. So everything is fine. By default, UNRAID is automatically going to check your devices, and it is going to do it by default every couple of, usually every day. You can see the history of all the checks that it performed, but I'm right now not that interested in this part. I just wanted to initialize my devices. Now, what can I do with the drive that I just created? If I go back to the dashboard, I'm going to see that the array is now online. I can see how much free space do I have, and now I can actually go to shares, and for example, I can add a share. If I want to create a share that's going to be, I don't know, a test share, it is going to ask me where to store the files into the array. I'm going to allocate high water, let's go most free, and let's automatically split any directory as required. Okay, include disks all and the share. Now, what this meant, the allocation method and the split level, is something that is also a little bit strange when you are new into how this thing handles the data. Now, the allocation method refers to which disk is going to get which part of the data, because data itself for this share is going to be distributed across the array. Now, it is going to include all the disks because explicitly it says so here. And when I take a look at the allocation method, it is going to try to, when it needs to create a new file or a new directory, it is going to use a different disk based on different criteria that I choose here. Now, I chose the most free because this one makes most sense if you are constantly filling disks up with files of pretty much the same size. So every new file that you create is going to choose the disk that has the most free space. So more or less it's going to end up on a different disk. If you choose high water, this means that you are going to be writing to the same disk until you hit the high water mark, and what the high water mark is the size of the largest data disk divided by 2. So basically in my particular case it means 16 gigabytes, and then after it finishes writing 16 gigabytes to one disk, it is going to continue to write the files on the other disk. Now, I'm specifically talking about files here because what UNRAID does is it is using XFS, and your files are, if you, for example, try to write to this share called test, your files are going to end up on different disks, and each disk is going to hold part of the files. So the whole set is going to get split across 3 disks, and the parity disk is going to hold the parity for the blocks. So on the parity disk you cannot see anything, but if you lose any of the disks, your parity disk is going to enable you to more or less come with the data that was on those blocks that are lost, or the disk that was lost, by calculating from the parity disk. So you cannot see what's on the parity disk, but the rest of the file system behaves as if your share has been distributed across multiple disks. Then the split level is also something that it needs to be addressed. It depends on the data. Usually it is just automatically split any directory is required, but you can, if you, for some reason you want to force it, you can make it use a separate disk for different directories, and it is going to ask you how do you want to split directories or whatever. Now, exclusion of disks also has a reason why it exists. Specifically, if you have multiple disks that are different. So, for example, you have a couple of mechanical disks that are slow, and you have a storage share that you want to use for long-term storage, and that doesn't require the SSDs, but you also have SSDs here, you can just exclude the SSDs. Also, vice versa. If you have something that's going to be small, but requires you to use quick disks, why not just include the disk that is an SSD? So let's say done, and now my share is online. Of course, I can now work with the SMB. I can tell, do I want to export my share name? I can create this share to be exported directly so the computers can see them. The security can be configured. This is outside of what I want to talk about today. So you either need to join the UNRAID to the domain, or you need to create a public user that is going to be able to log on and to read or write to the disks. Now these settings from and the write settings to is not something that I care about right now, but what I care about are the cases in the case sensitive names. So is the system going to distinguish between capital letters and small case letters, and or is it going to just force the lower ones? And security can be public, secure, and private, depending on what I need to do. Now, just going to apply to this, and this is basically it. Now, if I need to do more, for example, if I want to have multiple shares, I can just add them here. They're going to divide between themselves the array, or I can create division inside the array, so I can create separate disks and then establish a quota on how much space is each share going to use. Or I can choose the disks, and by this I can then choose where the files are going to end up. Next step that I want to talk about is users, because users are extremely user-friendly. You have a management access user, you have share access user, so these are two different things. And if you know anything about Linux, you know that what basically this means is this is a Linux user and this is a Samba user. So the shares access user is going to be a user that has the access to the shares, and it's going to behave like this, like one. Now for the interesting things. Settings are where everything that you want to work with UNRAID lies in. So system settings is about CPU pinning. You can have a separate virtual machine running on separate CPUs. If you have multiple CPUs, I have 8 of those. They are virtual, but they exist. So, for example, if I have a virtual machine, I can dedicate a specific CPU core to it. There are disk settings here that are going to make much more sense if you have a physical disk. So you're going to have, or you can configure spin down delay, you can configure your shutdown time, you can configure what is the system going to be for the disks in the array. You can tune different values for the disks. Specifically, one of those things that you can tune and you're going to have to tune is the warnings threshold for the disks. So if the disks get too hot, you're going to get an email or a warning. Also, you can have smart track information about your disk and then give you warnings based on this. Now, all the different other services like Docker, virtual machines and so on require you to turn them on. For example, if I have Docker here, I can turn it on, and then what it requires me to do is to assign a path for the Docker drive. Now, a path for the Docker drive is something that I need to assign. I can assign it in any place that I want to, but I need to assign it to a specific disk. So It can be in a BTRFS, XFS, or the directory. Let's say that I want it in a directory. I'm going to say that this is going to be on a user. No, I'm going to go with this one, test underscore docker. And I'm going to say that my app data is going to be here. I'm going to apply this. Okay, now I have my Docker drive. I have my Dockers enabled, and my Dockers are now specifically on the disk one. My application data is stored here in my user directory. So my Docker service is running. Okay, once I have my Docker running, I'm also going to put up a VM manager, and I'm going to enable the VMs. And I'm just going to say apply. And it is warning me that I don't have Intel MDV capability. And it says that I should be disabling the VM function. I'm just going to enable it in order to show you how this thing looks like, but it is going to be either sluggish or not work at all. Now, let's just go to the VMs and see what can you do when it comes to VMs. This is pretty basic. You can add a VM. You can choose which VM you want to install. Depending on what you have, you can either just say, okay, I want to install Linux. And then it is going to ask you a bunch of questions that are more or less the same questions that you need to answer every time that you are running a Proxmox virtual machine or whatever. So you can choose everything that can be set in a normal KVM. I'm going to skip over this because I don't care about the virtual machine being installed, but you can actually install the machine from here. Now, what I'm much more interested in are the Dockers, which are initially completely empty. And I'm interested in the apps and the tools. Now, let's talk about Docker containers and the apps, and why do they work even though that VMs don't. The Dockers themselves are a way of running a basic machine that contains only the files that are required for the application to run, and the Docker itself relies on the rest of the operating system to provide it for the things that it requires to run. So the kernel, the memory controller, the process controller, and everything else is done by the kernel of the operating system that is running the Docker. And then the Docker has its own separate part of the memory, separate part of the kernel space in which it runs. This means that you can actually run different applications that are completely invisible to each other, so they're completely isolated on the same machine while just maintaining one operating system instead of running an entirety of the operating system inside the VM in order to just run an application. You could theoretically go here and go and say I want to run a container in Docker, and this can be done. If you want to just simply run a Docker container here, it can be done. So if you have anything that you created yourself, you can run it here. But the main appeal for the UNRAID and main appeal for the virtual machines inside the UNRAID or the Dockers inside the UNRAID is not here. It is in the apps category. Now first I need to go and install a plugin, and we're going to be seeing this window a lot because this is the window that says that something is being installed or reconfigured. This is basically a log trace of whatever it is doing, and it should be just saying done in the end. Okay, I understand. Now what is happening is that it is going through the application depot or application repository on the UNRAID site, and it is giving me the option to go through different Docker containers that are specifically designed for the Docker. Let me quickly go through the installation and configuration of something simple, just to show you how this thing can work and how this thing actually works. You can see that there is a lot of things here. So Tailscale for the VPN, to-do lists, dump drop, dump edit, dump do, the simple notepad application that is on the web, to-do list on the web that has nothing connected to it, no database, no users, no authentication, anything. Dump drop just to provide the interface to just drag and drop the file and then export it somewhere. There is a lot of things here. By a lot, I mean hundreds of different Dockers available for the UNRAID. Now, let's go through something that we know that works. Let's just first install the UNRAID patch. By default, your server is going to be warning you when something is available. So if an update or a patch is available, it's going to warn you, but it is going to wait for you to install the patch. You can turn on the auto install or UNRAID patcher, and then this patcher is going to be auto installing the patches when it needs to. Let's just put this thing on. It's going to download the Docker. It should be expanding it then and running it. Okay, I need to go to Tools, UNRAID patch and accept the disclaimer. So I need to go to the, it says Tools, and I need to go to the UNRAID patch, and I should accept the disclaimer. So it's checking for patches now. Okay, done. And now, if I go under my apps, I can see different things here. I installed one app. This app ended up in Tools. This is a little bit confusing because some of the things that you install are going to end up in Tools. Some of the things that you're going to install are going to end up as containers. But let's say that the patch, so the thing that I installed, ended up as a tool. But some of those are going to end up as patches. Let me go to install something that's going to end up as a Docker because I'm using it all the time. I'm going to go with the DNS. Let's install something that is actually interesting. Let's install Pi0. Pi0 should be somewhere here. So Pi-hole 0, Pi-hole dot, and from what you can see here is there are different things that are called Pi-hole, and they come from different repositories. Now, a note of warning. UNRAID has a couple of repositories, and those repositories are maintained by different users. Using a current application from either of the repositories means that you're going to get the current version of the application. And what can happen is that one repository can just stop updating an application, and then your application needs to be switched over. You need to switch over to another application from the other repository that's going to perform the same function. So bear in mind that if you install, for example, Pi-hole from ZappyZap, after this, and if this doesn't get supported anymore, then you need to go to test.c repository and then go install this version of here. But right now, what you need to know is that there is a couple of versions of this. I'm going to go with this Pi-hole from ZappyZap. Now, let's just click on the info to see what we're installing. Now, what I can see here is that this is installation of the Pi-hole. I need to assign a static IP to the Docker. I must then set both the variables to the DNS to local network. It says that this has been added on December 6th, 2022. And you can see the number of downloads per month, so the trends per month, and you can see the number of downloads per month. So this is a pretty popular application, but what is bothering me right now is that it has been last updated 3 years ago. Not 3, but 2 years ago. Let me see this one. This one has been updated last time 4 years ago. Let me just go to the statistics. It doesn't even have the statistics, so there were no changes. This was just created and that's it. So this one is newer. I could theoretically also go and see, is this one different? This is a 24, so it should be newer than the other ones, but depending on how the container itself was created, this may or may not mean anything. Now, from my perspective, as somebody who has used this for a couple of years, I know that this and this container are probably completely fine to install without thinking about this, because this one is, let me just check, it should be template, it is based on which container, let me just see, initial release, okay. Let me just check if this is based on the official container. No. This one installs the Pi-hole and installs DNS server called Unbound. So, and this is based on official Pi-hole container. So this means that whatever gets updated on the Pi-hole is going to get updated on this container. So this container itself does not need to be updated, because this is going to pull the updates from the official container. Now, okay, let's just press install and see how this thing works. In order to run a container, you need to provide the UNRAID with a way of knowing how to run the container. For example, this container is supposed to be a DNS server, and this container is supposed to be a DNS resolver. So it is going to be basically your all-in-one solution for DNS. Since it is a DNS and it needs to resolve for the other computers, it needs to have a fixed IP address. I'm going to quickly check if my computer has, if there is an IP address free in my computer. Let me just ping something. For example, let's say I'm going to go with 234. So 168.1.1.234. And I'm going to go with 24 here. Now, I don't want to use the Tailscale, so I don't want this to be directly connected to Tailscale, although I could use this. By using this, I could directly connect this Docker into my Tailscale network if I had one. So this Docker could be available to all my other devices connected to the Tailscale network, but more on Tailscale and different VPNs in one other episode. Now, then the console shell command. I'm going to go with the shell. I don't care about this. Which port is going to be which one? So port 403 is going to end up on this port. This is going to end up on this port. This is going to end up on this port. Okay, container variable. Okay, this is fine. This is fine to a service LAN IP. Time zone, it should be something like, I'm going to go with the time zone key is going to be, let's leave it in the TZ. Web password is going to be Pi-hole. So everything here should be fine. Let me just double check. Did I forget something? That should be, that I should think about. Okay. Let me try and apply. Okay, so what I need the local IP address. Time zone. I need to check what time zone is. Okay, let's see what the name for time zone of Zagreb is. Always go and Google. So I want to have I'm in Zagreb, so I want to find Zagreb. HR in my country code. So Europe Zagreb or HR. So time zone is HR. Okay, let me just go and say apply and see if this thing works. Now what is actually being done is it is actually pulling the container. So it is going to go through the to the Docker Hub. It's going to get the layers for the Dockers that I requested, so the UNRAID, and then it is going to pull this container and install it on this machine. If you are unfamiliar with containers, don't sweat. I'm going to make another episode strictly on containers and to explain how these work. And I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible and not scare you too much. But let's say, for the sake of this argument and waiting here, is that your container is combined a huge directory or a huge structure combined from different versions of your application, including all the different and other things that your application needs, and this is integrated in the operating system that you're running. So what you're getting is a package. This package contains something. This something can then be used to install and run the application that you requested. Okay, now download complete, extract and pull complete should be said. Okay, come on. Okay, it says that there is no configured subnet or IP range. My IP address is okay. Done. Now let me see, did my container get installed? And it should. No, because I made a mistake. Let me just try to remedy this. Let me quickly go here. Let me quickly go to this one. Yes, by Holland bound install. Let me just redo this. Okay, fixed IP address. Oh, I know what I did. What I did is that I misread the instructions here. So this is going to be this. Also, it doesn't require me to tell the subnet, so the subnet itself is wrong. I made a mistake. This is HR. Weblog modes bind the address for the Lighthead HTTPD. Okay, so this is going to be not this one, but 164. Let me try it like this. Yes, much better. Just make note that once I have the container or the Docker installed, the image is already here. So if I try to run it, it's just going to run. Now, if I go to my Docker, I should be seeing my Pi-hole being run. So my container or my Docker is started here. It was all called Python abound. I can see all the different configurations that are here. So I can see everything that is being configured. And if I take a look at the container, I can just see that it is running. What I can also do here is I can press left click on my container, and then I have the options to stop, pause, restart, and so on. And the most important thing is probably web UI. If I press here, I'm just redirected to my Pi-hole, and this is my newly installed machine. So my newly installed Pi-hole is here. I don't think that there is a password. Password generally displayed to the user. The password can be deleted later on, but it is possible to set a new password, to disable the password, so on and so on and so on. So I can just do sudo Pi-hole. To be honest, I haven't seen where it said the password is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and left click, go to the console, open the console for the Docker, wait for it to show up. Then I'm going to say paste. The password is going to be password. Then I'm going to go out, go here and say and I'm in. And this is my Pi-hole. So from choosing an application here to having a running Pi-hole, it took what? One error and probably 2 minutes. If I need to install something quickly, let's do another one. Let's do something that is going to be much more easier to install. For example, let's install Damdo. Damdo is, as it said, stupidly simple to do application. So this is going to be it. It should just accept the defaults. So my Pi-hole runs here, and if I installed my Pi-hole completely, and if I connected my domains to the Pi-hole, this would filter the DNS queries, and it would enable me to stop some of the queries that are problematic. By problematic, I mean being annoying ads. So it is installing the Docker, it is pulling everything. And while we are waiting for this, let me just also mention one more thing. And this is that once your Dockers are run and your Docker is installed, they can be completely, they can be updated at any point in time, just by going to the Docker, and there is a button that says update or update all. So this has been done also. So I can now go to the Dockers. And now I have two applications running, hopefully. One is going to be the Pi-hole, the other is going to be Damdo. I can see which port they are assigned to. I can see the IP. So I can see that, for example, this container has its own IP, and it is behaving as it is, as if it was a machine on the network. So it has its own IP, so you can connect to it. This .234. And this Docker has its own internal IP, and on the LAN, so on the local network, it is on this actual address. So it is just using a port on a machine on the IP of the server that I'm running at. So my UNRAID is running at 1.164, and this is on the port 3000. Now, I can also push auto start here in order to make sure that your Docker is starting when the UNRAID itself is starting. And let's, for example, now just open the web UI to see how this thing looks. So it's Damdo. There is nothing else to do here. Just you can just add things and then say what you want to do, and it's going to just keep this list online. That's it. It doesn't do anything other than this. So this is how you quickly turn on the RAID or UNRAID. This is how you quickly install the UNRAID and how you quickly get a few of applications online. Now there is much more to UNRAID, because what you can do is you can map the devices to your virtual machines. What you can do is you can actually run virtual machines if you turn on the right support for the virtual machine. What you can also do is you can use different devices as shares. You can configure shares. You can use Tailscale, WireGuard, and different other VPNs to connect to this service, and everything in between. You can do whatever you want to with your UNRAID. And I'm going to go and say that, okay, I may not be the right person to ask, but I have an UNRAID installation running since 2020, I think, and or was it even before COVID? So it could be that it is running for the last 6 years. And the reason why I don't know is that the installation itself is so well behaved that I actually have no idea when was the last time I had any problems with it. It has something like 16 terabytes of disks in it, and it has been running completely flawlessly for the last whatever years. So this is one of those fire and forget or run and forget applications, which you just need to upgrade from time to time, and you just need to do minimal maintenance. Because since you're paying for the support, you have some sort of support, and this support basically boils down to security and all the other updates. So just recently I updated to version 7.0. But having said all this, I'm pretty much happy with UNRAID. This doesn't mean that this is my primary solution, but when it comes to storage for different things that are not that extremely important to me, or for things that are only important to me in the context of the local network, I'm usually using my UNRAID. Also, I'm running on my UNRAID my home assistant, and there is going to be an episode on that also. I'm running my Pi-hole, so for DNS. I'm running all the different solutions that I need for the smart home, so for the Node-RED, the MQTT server, and so on. So I'm using UNRAID as a simple way of running different applications that I would be otherwise, let's say, too lazy to install myself, or that would otherwise require too much of my time, since as every good system administrator, I dislike administrating my own systems. So I don't care about coming home after the whole day of working and then doing more updates on my own system. So what I want to have at my home is something that is going to work out of the box and work continuously with minimal administration if possible. Now, having said all this, thank you for being with me, and see you in the next episode. I'm going to probably talk about VPNs then, and try to explain the difference between the OpenVPN and the Tailscale and WireGuard and everything else that is on the market right now. But until then, see you and thank you.